All right, it's 12 o'clock, and we are ready to have the first meeting of the Budget Review Subcommittee on Economic Development, Public Protection, Tourism, and Energy. And I'd ask at this time for Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Representative Ull, Representative Gentry, Representative Hart, Representative Lockett, Representative Bowling, Representative Bray, Representative Petrie, Chair Fugate.
I'm here. Thank you, ma'am. All right. Today we have the Public Protection Cabinet, and if you all come to the table, you'll be presenting an overview of the cabinet and information on the new sports wagering program and all the millions that it's bringing into the state, supposedly. And at this time, I'll ask you to raise your right hands and be sworn in for testimony. Do you promise or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you all. And you may begin your testimony. Identify yourself. Make sure the green button's on. Identify yourself and proceed.
Okay.
And thank you for being here today.
Yeah. Well, first off, thank you for having me, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay? Is this okay? Okay, good. Okay. How about this? A little better? Okay. Okay, I'd like to start off by introducing myself. My name's Ray Perry. I'm the Secretary of the Public Protection Cabinet. And to my left is DJ Watson. She's the Deputy Secretary of the Cabinet. And behind me here is many of the talented staff in our Public Protection Budget Office and also our Legislative Liaison. I'd like to say we've got a PowerPoint presentation prepared today, but before we go into that, I'd like to go over some quick numbers, just an overview of what's going on in the cabinet. The Public Protection Cabinet is primarily a regulation cabinet responsible for licensing and oversight of numerous industries and occupations operating in Kentucky. The cabinet is comprised of 11 agencies and currently has 658 full-time employees, 8 part-time employees, and 8 interim employees. Now I'm going to go over just not all the agencies, but a few of the agencies, and what we're seeing is the workloads are increasing. So we'll start off with the Department of Insurance. In 2022, the Department of Insurance processed 172,466 agent licenses. In 2023, they processed 204,022 agent licenses. So that's an increase of 18%. The department also, it has a consumer complaint division, and that division handled 3,622 complaints in 2022, 3,713 complaints in 2023 for a 4% increase. It's also, I should note that they recovered, their consumer complaint division, $21.7 million on behalf of consumers that filed complaints against their insurers. So now, next we'll go to housing, building, and construction. From FY 2022 to FY 2023, they've seen a 7.5% increase in license renewals and a 9.5% increase in new license applications, a 22.9% increase in electrical inspections, a 4.8% increase in building inspections, 6.4% increase in plumbing inspections. This is a big one. 64% increase in HVAC inspections, and a 9% increase in permits, 9% increase in manufactured housing inspections, 15% increase in life safety inspections, which is the fire marshal, 40.5% increase in hazmat inspections. So their business is up big time in housing, building, construction. Office of Claims and Appeals, 2022, the program received 309 complaints. 2023, 366 claims. That's a 20%, nearly 20% increase. Boxing and Wrestling Commission, over 750 wrestling shows in the state, 77 boxing and MMA events were held in the state in 2023, so it's growing. Department of Charitable Gaming, gross receipts from charitable gaming were up. 2022, they were 532 million plus. In 2023, it's estimated to be 657,800,000 plus. So that's a 24% increase in charitable gaming receipts. The Department of Financial Institutions, the number of licensed investment advisors has increased from 1432 in 2021 to 1501 in 2022, a 4% increase. And it should be noted that Kentucky is the sole regulator for investment advisors, and delays in processing directly impacts the ability of investment advisors to do business in Kentucky. So we've got to stay on it to keep it going. The number of broker dealers doing business in Kentucky has increased from 145,091 in 2021 to 160,532 in 2022, a 10% increase. And of course, sports wagering was added to part of the Kentucky Horse Racing Commission, which has also greatly increased the workload and responsibilities of that agency. So as we can see, most all business sectors regulated by the Public Protection Cabinet are seeing an increase in activities. And while this means an increased workload for our staff, it's a great thing for the Commonwealth as it indicates a strong and growing economy. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Secretary Wasson to go over the PowerPoint, because if I touch this thing, it's not going to go right. So, DJ, would you please go ahead with the PowerPoint?
I will. Thank you. I'm DJ Wasson. I'm Deputy Secretary, and thank you for having us today. I'm going to give a brief overview of our budget, and then we are happy to answer any questions that you might have. So as the Secretary said, we are primarily a licensing and regulatory cabinet, and nearly just every industry in Kentucky, nearly, wide-ranging from housing, building, and construction to horse racing to alcoholic beverage control, everything in between. So you see our agencies listed there on that slide. This is an overview of our cabinet budget. As you see, we are primarily funded through our restricted funds. It's our licensing fees. I think it's about 96% is restricted funds. We do get a few general funds. Housing, building, and construction and horse racing get general funds, as well as our Office of Claims and Appeals. And I did want to highlight that fiscal year 2024 number there, that $1 million. That is funding as a result of increasing payout limits to crime victims that came through legislation in 2023. And so with that increase, we had an additional appropriation to assist those crime victims. We do also have some small federal funding. Those are grant funding through our Office of Claims and Appeals, our Appraisers Board, and our Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control. And then just graphically, you can see that the blue there is our restricted funds. So yes, primarily a restricted fund cabinet. We did include several additional budget requests in the budget, and thank you very much for including those in House Bill 6. I've highlighted some of those on this slide, and you can see primarily they are for additional personnel and resources, as the Secretary just went over. We are seeing increased workloads in all of our agencies, and that's what these additional budget requests reflect, the need for additional staff so that we can, and equipment and resources, so we can meet our statutory responsibilities. I will briefly explain there is a capital IT project in Department of Housing, Building, and Construction that is for an upgrade to their licensing and permitting database. There were some limitations in the current database, and so we are in the process of modernizing that database in-house. That is one efficiency we have at Public Protection, is that we have an in-house IT staff. Since we do license so many different industries and occupations, we can utilize that logic that we have for licensing in-house and build upon that and customize it for each of our agencies. There was one additional budget request that was not included in House Bill 6, so I would like to point that out. And it's in our Department of Charitable Gaming. This is another industry where we have seen quite an expansion in that industry, as the Secretary just noted. And we had requested 3 additional positions to provide better geographic coverage with our inspections and our enforcement capabilities, and to take workload off of our existing staff. It is wonderful that this industry is expanding. That helps the charities that receive that funding, but we are stretched with our current resources. The committee sub to House Bill 6 did address some of our vacancy funding concerns, and we very much appreciate those changes. We do have 3 departments that still have funding issues, so I wanted to share that information. The first being Department of Housing, Building, and Construction. We did receive our additional budget request for 5 positions, and again, thank you for that. But there are still funding challenges for 12 positions. These are primarily inspectors, some of our licensing staff, but primarily inspectors. So what is the impact of not being able to fund those positions? That's enumerated here on this slide. Just an inability to inspect timely. It would remove some inspectors from at least 13 counties, would result in delays to construction projects, investigating accidents. We would have to, figure that out and use our supervisors to fill in for those inspectors. They are inspectors themselves, but that removes that layer of oversight, and it could result in some errors or some delays in issuing licenses and permits and other certifications. Another agency that would be impacted with funding is the Kentucky Horse Racing Commission. There's going to be concerns with 9 positions in that agency, which would just result in not having the staff to issue licenses and audit the sports wagering industry, and inadequate staff to ensure the safety of our equine athletes at the tracks. Finally, the Department of Insurance would be impacted with 6 positions. And these are primarily in the Health and Life Division and financial standards that reviews the solvency of companies. So we would, the impact of that would be just delays in investigating consumer complaints, delays in the approval of product filings. There is a statute that says, that provides a time frame for review of those products, and they're deemed approved, so there could be products that entered that we did not have time to review, and just delays in products being available for consumers. I know there is an interest in sports wagering, so I did want to provide a quick update on sports wagering. As you all know, sports wagering launched, the retail launched September 7th last year, and the online launched on September 28th. Since then, revenue collected has been a little over $20 million as of February 1st. Those funds are used for the administrative expenses of to administer the sports wagering requirements. There's 2.5% deposited into the Problem Gambling Assistance Fund, and then the remaining money goes into the Permanent Pension Fund. We have audited those numbers through October, and those are posted out on the website. The tax revenue through October was roughly $7.9 million. We are currently auditing the remaining numbers after October, and hope to have that accurate information soon. I think the goal is by the next commission meeting.
Which is February 20th.
And that is our brief overview, but again, happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Okay, thank you. I do have a few questions, and if any other members want to ask, feel free to join in. So when you talk about the 12 positions eliminated, 9 and 6 in those 3 different areas, are those live jobs? I mean, is that people you have to lay off?
There are some of those vacancies that are filled. Yes,
how many in each one are filled, and are actually live jobs that you're going to have to go to somebody and say, you're laid off?
Let me get you that accurate information.
Okay, and I'd like to get that soon.
Okay,
Absolutely.
we will.
Because I think that's important. And then on the sports wagering, and it is, I'm interested in the public protection part of that. Right now, there's not any restrictions on credit card usage in Kentucky. Is that right?
To use
as far as people using credit cards to gamble and to go on these sports. And the reason I bring it up, somebody brought to my attention today that a fellow that worked for the Jacksonville Jaguars football team had stolen over $20 million by basically going on FanDuel and wagering, and now the football team, the professional football team, wants FanDuel to pay that money back. Is there anything that would protect a parent from one of their children or somebody using a credit card to just basically bankrupt their family? Is there anything that we need to do as legislators to put in some kind of safeguards to help with that problem? Sure. And then second of all, is there any kind of on these? I've never been on the app, so and I guess I should go on there just to see what it requires. But if a 15-year-old boy wants to get on there, is there any safety measures that would make them confirm that they're above 18 or above 21? Is that already in place?
That is in place within the apps. Yes, there is identity verification. Mr. Chairman, on your other question, I need to do some research on that and get back to you about the credit card usage. I don't have that information.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you can tell us this, but is there any way we could find out what the amount of course, I don't know how they gamble because I've never done that. But do most people use a credit card? Do they buy like just a credit card they can put a little bit of money on and use that, so they're not using a personal credit card? Is there any way we could find out what percentage of people use just a personal credit card and we're bankrupting our people?
Let me see what information we have that might be able to address that
Because
question.
I do feel like, whether you're for or against the gambling and all that stuff, I do feel like we have somewhat of a responsibility to make sure we protect families
Absolutely.
who may have access to credit cards or debit cards and would bankrupt their family, trying to win whatever they can win on there. I think that's all. Oh, one more question. The 2.5% that goes into the gambling addiction, is that 2.5% enough to fill the need of those who would call in and say, "Look, I'm hooked on gambling. I need help"? Is that 2.5% enough in that fund? Does it need to be a higher percentage of the income that comes into the state? Does it need to be a higher percentage, 5% or 6%, to make sure people really do have access to the help that they would need if they have a problem with gambling?
And that fund is run through the Cabinet for Health and Family Services, so let me touch base with them and get that information. I wouldn't want to speak on their behalf, but that's a good question, so let me ask that question.
Okay, thank you very much. Representative Gentry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Secretary Perry and Deputy Secretary Watson, for your presentation. Mr. Chair, I can comment a little bit on that. Since I was pushing the sports wagering bill for 6 or 7 years, and what a lot of people don't know is I was probably the biggest advocate here in the General Assembly on problem gambling and problem gambling funds, and I will be filing another bill to put some more standards in for problem gambling from a prevention standpoint, because it is a real issue with gambling. We all know that. That's why it was outstanding for the first time in Kentucky history. We are putting tax dollars aside for problem gambling assistance and prevention programs. I think what's going on now with our Kentucky problem gambling program, and I will be meeting with them soon, is they're receiving these funds for the first time, so they're building out their system, so to speak, and I'm going to be working with them on some additional language that we can hopefully pass from a prevention measure that will help their program. Personally, I think we missed the bus on taking some funds from our HHR program when we did parimutuel reform. I fought for that. I was not successful getting that in the bill. So if there are further needs in the future for these programs, I would be a big advocate of that. I think right now we're in a wait and see, trying to figure out exactly what the program's going to look like and what kind of spending is required. So that's certainly something that I would be for looking at as we move forward to see what we can do to improve their work, their much needed work in these communities. And I also want to take a moment just to say that we have almost $20 million, or a little over $20 million, it looks like, prior to auditing, through February 1st. That's only 1/4 of the year. And we were projected revenues between 20 and 23 million in a year. So we are far in advance of that right now. Now it is football season, which is probably a higher revenue period in the wagering industry. But I'm very concerned about possibly having some staff shortages overseeing this industry, especially since it's a very new industry. And Mr. Chair, if I could just put in a couple words and say, man, we need to make sure that doesn't happen. So anything that we can do to make sure that we have enough funding to fill those positions, that this industry is properly managed and overseen. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Gentry. Representative Lockett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to see you, DJ.
Nice to see you.
I just have a question for you in terms of the empty positions that were cut in the budget across different divisions, whether it's DOI or the others. Are those positions that were empty? I'm assuming, and were you attempting to fill those? Had they been empty for a long time? Kind of fill me in on that.
Well, as far as Kentucky horse racing, when that sports wagering was created, we worked with personnel cabinet, created the positions, but had not yet filled all those positions. So when we filled them, you take the snapshot, so all the employees that were hired into those vacant positions after the snapshot of July 1 would be eliminated. And it would leave us with hardly any employees, honestly, to manage sports wagering. And that's across the board on all of our positions that were cut. You know, they might have been vacant, but we're trying to hire people competing right now with private sector. For example, financial institutions, we have to compete now heavily with the feds because they've now allowed 5-day telework, and they pay more, and they've always kind of recruited from our staff. So now they can come to our staff and say, we'll pay you near double, and you don't have to move to Chicago. You can stay at home and work. So that we had a drain of examiners off that. I mean, it was like 20 plus examiners. I think we lost tons of experience. So just because they were vacant doesn't mean we weren't making the effort to try to hire. I mean, we would recruit, and a lot of times we'd get registers in and there was nobody on them, you know. Now, because of, you know, the things that we've done to get raises and because of what you all have done, it's getting better. We're getting more interest in positions, and we're trying to get them filled, but they just weren't done on that July 1 deadline. And I mean, just imagine you have a business and for whatever reason, people leave and you take a snapshot on that day and then you can't fill those positions. You have to lay off some people that you have hired. It would be devastating. That's kind of what we're looking at here.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else got any questions? All right. Secretary Perry and Watson, thank you for coming today and the overview. If you get me a copy of those stats that you read off, that'd be a help. Just email them to me.
Okay.
I get them to staff. They can get them to me. And then if you could find out on just those couple questions I had on the sports wagering, that'd be a blessing. Be a
Okay.
help.
Happy
All
to.
right.
Thank
Will
you.
do.
All right. We
Thank
are
you all.
adjourned, and thank you for coming today.